You're listening to Cards to the Moon, a podcast about trading cards from both a collector and investor perspective. We hope you'll stick around for the ride as we take a deep dive into the state of the hobby, share some hot takes, hopefully some useful advice, and fun stories along the way. Hey guys, welcome to Cards to the Moon. This is episode 71. My name is Clark of 5 Card Guys on Instagram. And with me co-hosting, as always, is Hyung of Integrity Sports Cards and John, who is Trade You at Recess. Okay guys, right off the top, I believe in one of our earlier episodes actually, John, you mentioned in one of the segments about the possibility of a vintage sports card hitting the 8-figure mark this year. Do you remember that?
I
do.
Like that was
one or something.
Yeah, that was inspired by Ezra Levine, the CEO of Collectors. Yeah,
and I guess he was right too. He was predicting that there might be. Well, we'll see if he's right, but he was predicting there might be the first 8-figure card. So yeah, for those who didn't hear, there's an auction at Heritage Auctions for the iconic 1952 Mickey Mantle baseball card, which was just graded a fresh SGC 9.5. Apparently, the backstory is Anthony Giordano, who's a 75-year-old waste management entrepreneur from New Jersey, is the owner of the card, and he's had the card for over 30 years, ever since he purchased the card at a show in New York back in 1991. Wow. when he paid $50,000 for it. So the current record for the sale, the current record for the sale of a sports card is the 1909 Honus Wagner, which sold for $6.6 million last August, if you guys remember. Mm-hmm. So 2 questions for you guys. Will this Mickey Mantle SGC 9.5 become the most expensive card ever sold, surpassing the Wagner card? And if so, do you think it will hit the 8-figure mark, the $10 million mark?
Go ahead, John. You can tackle this.
It appears, though, that it's on its way to breaking the 8-figure mark. I mean, everybody is sort of predicting it. The card itself looks, I don't know about you guys, but it looks pretty clean, man.
It's so clean.
Centered really nicely. Looks like the color on it looks great. Doesn't look blurry. It looks like an immaculate card, and it could probably rival the PSA 10s, because you never know if those PSA 10s are actually PSA 10s. No offense, but just eye appeal alone, it looks like a serious card. So I think that certainly factors in to the final price. I think if it feels like buyers are treating this because that 952 Mantle. Anyone who purchases that card, whether it's raw or PSA 1 or whatever it is, it's all about eye appeal, like the color,
that card's
color,
so
centering, all of that stuff. So it's got it all except the fact that it's 9.5. It looks nearly perfect.
They say that the PSA 10 is valued at like 25 million. So there's three of those. Wow. So right. I could easily see that 9.5 going for 8 figures. Right. As crazy as that sounds, I think it's just way too iconic. And there is a crazy backstory, actually. I don't know the whole detail, but it's apparently a hobby legend with that 52 Topps, because apparently during that time, nobody wanted, during that time, cards, right? Mm-hmm. So they said they couldn't even sell, packs for like a penny. And what they ended up doing is they ended up dumping cases after cases into the ocean because it was a tax write-off, right? So I heard that, yeah. And then there was this lone case that survived for decades. stuck in an attic. And basically that's Mr. Mint. He basically in the 80s 90s he ended up the guy who had the case, he ended up opening the cards. Like opening the boxes. Okay. And there were 90 Mickey Mantles in that case. And all of those included those PSA 10s, those 3 PSA 10s all came from that same case, plus this 9.5 as well. Get out of here. Yeah, so
Crazy.
it's this hobby legend, and David Adams, as you guys know, one of the largest sports card dealers, they actually bought the box in 2013, the outside box of the case for like enormous, like it was like six figures for just the cardboard off Mr. Mint. Which is Rosen, right? So there's that too, and they have that same case, and it's a kind of like a hobby legend, right? So the backstory behind that, it's unbelievable. But there is an article that I'll share with you guys that kind of explains this whole story. It was pretty cool.
Do you believe it?
I do believe it, yeah, because it's the same guy that basically in that letter.
Yeah.
When he sold to Anthony Giordano, I think.
Yeah.
That was his name. I believe Mr. Mint is the one who sold it to him. Because he was the one who bought all 90, and he had basically all the PSA 10s too. Right? So
crazy.
Yeah, it's an insane story. So that was, I guess the 9.5 was the best condition out of all those 90 he had. I guess the PSA 10s were submitted. And the backstory too is like in the early 90s, this is what kind of made PSA big in terms of vintage. This is why, like, because they started casing these mantles, right? And then that made PSA kind of where they are today in the game, right? So
yeah. Wow. Yeah. Do you think Giordano first submitted it to PSA and got a PSA 8?
No.
Oh, he didn't? I don't know what this.
Yeah, I don't think that's true. I honestly think it was like he literally kept it raw. He bought it from that Mr. Rosen guy, Mr. Mint. Yeah. And that was the backstory he had all of them. He had all the like absolutely mint condition straight out of a brand new case of 1952 Topps.
No, I'm asking like why wouldn't he have submitted it to PSA first?
Oh, yeah, because we would have heard about it probably. I think so. That thing is absolutely flawless. That card, right? Yeah. I mean, that was handpicked by Mr. Rosen himself of kind of like the best available. So I don't think personally I think it would have came back potentially a PSA 10.
That's what I'm wondering. Why wouldn't he?
Wait, are you guys talking about
PSA?
the SGC 9.5?
Yeah. The SGC 9.5. That's the question is why wouldn't he send it to PSA?
If it was that premium.
That's what I'm asking. Yeah.
He could have, but I mean that was the argument. This is where we say crack and resubmit.
That's what I'm saying. I wonder if he did and he came PSA 8. He's like, okay, I'm just gonna submit it to SGC.
But back then, when was he submitting it? Back in the 90s?
Yeah, in the 90s. This is where the
late 90s, right?
No, early. It would have been early 90s. Yeah, I believe so.
When did PSA come into existence? Wasn't it like
in the early 90s?
Early 90s.
That's when they started getting bigger.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because back then, I would imagine if you had an amazing vintage card, SGC was the go-to vintage.
They were, yeah.
Grader. So you probably would have saved the best for SGC, and I guess that's what you were kind of talking about. I was kind of confused as to what you guys were talking about, but you'd save the best for SGC, and the ones you didn't think were quite there, you'd probably send to like a secondary grader, right?
Yeah, it's true. I thought SGC was known. Yeah.
I figured you'd send all of them to SGC, but yeah, anyways.
But it's in a new SGC slab, right? The 9.5?
Right.
But you can always send it. You can send it in, and they reslap it for you for $10 or whatever.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I think true vintage collectors are still SGC. I think PSA is still kind of like it's newer to the vintage world, right? So
true.
SGC had the credibility. So I don't know the backstory and why that was sent, but it is a new SGC slab. But that thing looks just as clean as any PSA 10.
It's beautiful. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, well, my Chris Paul, I have the old Hyung, you have it now, but it's the old 98 SGC 98, which is mint 10. And I remember back a while ago, I emailed SGC to say, hey, if I send this in a 98, is that a 10? And would you guys reslab it? And they said, yeah, absolutely. They wouldn't regrade it. It would cost like $10 or whatever, and
it was like a reholder. Yeah,
they would reholder it and put the new label as a 10. So it could have been the case. Either way, it's like a beautiful 9.5.
Yeah, for sure. So definitely, I think it's going to be the highest value card sold. The only thing I'm hesitant of it maybe not reaching the 8-figure mark is just the state of the market. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like we saw with the LeBron triple logo man, like that was super hyped up. I'm not saying it's the same thing.
Sure.
Obviously, this is an iconic card, but is there a chance that it just falls just shy of that 8-figure? I think it might.
Right.
But like we said before, we have a bad record of predicting super high end.
That's true. That's true.
So we'll see. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what it ultimately sells for. All right. With that, let's move on to our next segment we call Hobby Headlines. Okay, so if you heard this news about the Mantle card and nothing else about sports cards, you would think the market is robust and doing extremely well, having millions being spent on sports cards. But we know there are different sectors in the sports card market that are struggling, especially during this bear market. And if you read the news, there's fewer and fewer articles about how the pandemic has fueled this hobby boom, and more news about how the sports card market is on shaky ground. There's an article I just read actually that I thought was pretty insightful from The Athletic. I think there's a paywall to it, so you might not have access to it, but the article is called State of the Sports Card Boom. After sky-high surge, is the market still healthy? So I thought for today's hobby headlines, we could go over some of the quotes in the article from people in the hobby and comment on whether we agree with where they think the hobby is at in this current moment. All right. So yeah, the interview is pretty extensive. The first quote is from Adam Martin. Hyung, you just mentioned him, co-owner of Dave and Adam's Card World near Buffalo, New York, just a couple hours from here in Toronto. And I think it is the biggest hobby box retailer next to Target and Walmart. So they're pretty big, right?
Wow.
So Adam Martin says in the article, high-end demand remains insane. It's still the best it's ever been. There are absolutely collectors, speculators, breakers who still have lots of money to spend and still are looking for something better to put their money into outside of the stock market. Agree, disagree with that sentiment?
I'm going to somewhat agree. Like, I always believe that the high-end market would sustain itself just because there's strong enough demand and the supply is limited, right? So and there's too much cash in the economy. It's not like, that's the problem. It's like there's too much cash, right? We printed more and more cash, so it's not like there's not enough cash and people aren't spending, right? So I think it's somewhat there's truth to his statement, but I also think it might be a little biased because he is in that industry where he's
a retailer,
the big, yeah, exactly. So
right. He's got to pump his business a bit. I think I agree as well. I'll put it kind of at 50-50 too. I think there's a good segment that seems to be leaving the hobby. Those are the quick investors, quick flippers, whatever you want to call it, the sneakerheads and so forth. But I don't know about you guys, but certainly how I feel, and I am sort of that prototypical dad demographic that collected in the early 90s, got out of it, and kind of came back in. I am that guy, and there's tons of those guys and gals out there, and I'm back in it, and I am enjoying the hobby as much as I enjoyed it when I was a child. And I'm continuing to enjoy it. And at this point, I don't really see myself leaving the hobby like I did the first go around. So for me, I certainly feel like I am here to stay, to continue to enjoy the hobby, to continue to search and chase or whatever. And I'm sure there are tons and tons of other people exactly like me that have come back into it and they're here to stay. So that for me, as much as the market has gone down and as much as people there certainly are people that have left and given up and taken L's and got burned, whatnot. There is certainly a big population of people that have gotten back into it and are fully enjoying the hobby for what it is. So that portion of it, I do agree, and I think that gives us some insight into, you know, what the future holds for the sports card industry.
Sure, I can see that for sure. Just back to the quote with the high-end collectors. I certainly agree that they still have money to spend and they're looking for alternative assets like sports cards. So I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon. But at the same time, they probably won't spend as much money as they did 1 or 2 years ago. But yeah, it won't completely die out. But no, I agree with your sentiment as well that there are going to be core collectors, like you mentioned, John, that will just continue to stay because they reignited their passion for the hobby, right? And actually, the next quote is kind of related to that. It's by Ryan Cracknell. You might know him. He writes a lot of articles on in Beckett on their website and in their magazine. And he says, if there's any part that's at risk, I suspect it would be those looking to make some quick profits. Margins are shrinking and collectors seem to be getting more selective in what they buy. That's not ideal for speculators, so some of them may move on.
Right. 100% agree with that that quote. It's kind of what we talked about. You collect what you love. You collect what you think is a viable asset in the future for a long-term investment, right? If you believe in the player and you believe in the player's past, and you see it as an investment piece over a long-term period of time, I think that's the right way to look at this this hobby and this market, and I think you'll enjoy it a lot more. Plus, you'll see way better gains in the long term.
Yeah, I totally agree with that sentiment as well. It's even more obvious when I believe the quick flippers are just all dumping their carts now, which is why we see this huge supply online on eBay that's driving down the price, right? And I think until that stabilizes a little bit more, where there's only core collectors remaining, like you're mentioning, John, like people that are still passionate about the hobby, just love collecting, are more of a collector themselves and an investor on the side, I think that's when things will start to stabilize. But yeah, right now you're just seeing the results of those quick flippers, those purely investor types just not seeing the value in being in the hobby. So that's why we're seeing this influx of supply for certain cards, right?
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I totally agree with you guys.
Okay, so let's go on to the third quote. This is from Jason Howarth, who is the Vice President of Marketing at Panini America. And he says, the hobby market continues to see exceptionally strong prices for wax boxes, which is all being driven by consumer demand. Single card sales of key rookies and short print inserts have maintained their momentum in both football and basketball.
Well, I think Panini's in a little bit of a pickle. So I don't know if he's the right guy to be answering that or questioning that or whatever it is. But I think, I think there's still going to be a market for a lot of people like the new stuff, the shiny stuff, chasing rookies. That's always fun. And I know, that's part of the hobby too, right? Especially if you have, kids and you're enjoying the hobby with your kids, it's something you look forward to. You're not like, sniping out singles on eBay with your kids, right? You're more so like ripping wax and, kind of enjoying the hobby portion of that. And I don't think breakers are going away either. So they're allocating, majority of the product, which a lot of people, I think a lot of hobbyists don't like. That's why there's kind of like that divide. But I think, like you said in the previous, it's people are going to fizzle out, including breakers. That is in it for the quick buck, and the true breakers are going to continue to do what they're doing. So I think it's going to be a healthy supply demand. Hopefully, Topps and Panini work, I guess, with the making sure they don't abuse it by overprinting product, right? So I think as long as there's a healthy correlation there, I think it could, there's somewhat truth to that statement. Yeah.
Okay.
He's certainly not wrong. I mean, organically, if you just look at it, in person, like in Toronto for us, I don't know how it is everywhere else. We kind of hoped, it was kind of like a quasi hope and prediction that cards would be sitting this year, that kids could afford it, that prices would eventually go down. For me, in the past couple of times I've gone into Walmarts, unfortunately, I'm not seeing that, man. People are still chasing, addicted, I don't see cards really sitting on shelves. And when they do, to be honest, it's not like people are lining up. So it does take a little bit longer to sell. But, products leaving the shelves in 30 days, that is still considered pretty top notch for any company standard, right? Sure. So to have all your products, blaster boxes at $49.99 Canadian for, Prism College product, it's still all selling out, man. Like it takes longer. It takes 30 days. It takes 40 days, whatever. But, the hopes of seeing some pretty good product on sale at Walmart or on sale at Target, we're still not there yet. So I think, as much as it's a comment that comes from like the Panini president, or whatever position he was,
VP of marketing.
VP, yeah, thank you. He's not wrong. It still seems as high. It still seems pretty high, the demand.
Yeah, and I didn't read the rest of the quote, but he does say that, like, unit sales are actually up double digits over last year, and I'm sure that's true, just because the hobby's been so hot over the past year, although it's been kind of down than 2 years ago when the hobby boom was happening. But I do think if you ask him again next year, it might be a different answer. Like, I am seeing the swing downwards, even in wax boxes. Like, maybe we go to a different Walmart, John, but I do see products still sitting there. And, when I go back, it's still sitting there, right? So it certainly doesn't go on sale. I'm sure it'll sell out eventually, but I think it's like beyond the 30-day window now, in my opinion. Sure. And there's been examples of where some wax product have, when they are first released, they're at a premium price, but wait a month and they're about 50%. You know what I mean? Uh-huh. So there are certain wax boxes that are not holding their value, and it's just dropping quickly. So I think that's just the way the market is right now. All right, we'll go on. Jesse Craig, Director of Business Development of PWCC Marketplace. He says, and this is in context with the current market correction, he says, it's also a market condition we believe is necessary to indicate that trading cards are further establishing themselves as a viable asset class. We want to see the space behaving in ways you would expect any other alternative investment to act.
1,000%. I'm glad he said that, because it's still, I think, a healthy correction at the end of the day. You still look at it as, what we experienced in the last couple of years wasn't regular. And for us to think that was regular and to sustain it at that level, there had to have been some kind of correction. And for the long-term health of any market, that's what you want. You want the proper corrections where it's needed. And that way, it is a viable secondary asset of investment that people are looking. It doesn't change anything for me. Like, I still believe that even if everybody said it was doom and gloom, I still think there's very, very valuable cards out there that I would want to keep, because, I know over time they're just going to continue to grow in value. Right. So for me, I agree with that 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I do agree with it as well. There's a part of me that gets a little confused, because I think before, when the hobby, 18 months ago or 24 months ago, when the hobby was just exploding, and it felt like we were, I say we, but the hobby was in an asset class that rivaled, some of the bigger, like whatever. It was kind of on par, same trajectory as like crypto and all that stuff, right? And, as hobbyists and people that are in it, you kind of puffed your chest up to say, yeah, see, there you go. Like, the sports card, this is legit. Like, this is no joke, And since it's kind of died down, obviously, I don't think we kind of have that much bravado and proudness that it's among those, like a big time asset class, but it's certainly as a secondary. I think what Hyung is saying, it's very, very viable as a secondary, and as a hobbyist, we can be confident in that. And I think what we've seen, witnessing the explosion, witnessing the correction, all that really did is for people that are still in it and the hobbyists that are still in it, we are very convicted that this is an asset class that, number one, we can enjoy as a hobby, but also invest into knowing that it is going to go somewhere positive in the future for us. So on the one hand, I think in terms of the big explosion and what we felt at that time, it's a little different now, but we certainly still are pretty convicted. So in a sense, I certainly agree.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you guys. Like, to say anything different really is to say that we just, the sports card as an asset class is what happened in the 90s, that it's just gonna disappear and fizzle out completely. And I think there are a lot of differences from that time, the junk wax era, to where it is now. And I think like you guys mentioned, it is it's just a simple market correction that we're seeing here. So and if we're wrong, then we won't be doing this podcast in the future.
The market won't exist, right? So
exactly. We'll be talking about nothing. All right. Okay, the last quote from this article is from Ken Goldin of Goldin Auctions. He says, "I've seen all the ups and downs. I think the high-grade, true vintage market has really become a mainstay in our society. To those people, they're not trading commodities and gambling. It's like modern art. Maybe the early tobacco cards are your Van Goghs. Early Topps cards are like Picassos. I see no impact on that."
Right. I agree. Yeah, we talked about this too. It's this is why vintage, I think, long term, will hold and sustain, and it has been, right. It has been. It never really been going down, and it's in the higher collectibles, the rare cards like the Mantles and stuff. It's so iconic in our culture, and I don't seeing that like disappear, because it is a form of art. It is a huge piece of history. Being able to go back in time and enjoy these as more limited art pieces, and that's why we say this is why I'm bullish also in the whole NFT world, right? Because it is so valuable and it's so rare that you're going to have some sort of security attached to it now, and still be able to enjoy it and, do things. So how that looks, who knows? But yeah, I agree with Ken when it comes to, it's a little bit less gambling and more kind of like mixed in with the investors and the art collectors and people who appreciate kind of like more generational pieces, that you could pass down to your newer generations as well, right? So there's so much I guess value in those high-end rare cards in the long term, and yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Right. Me too. Clark, you kind of touched on it during the last quote, and some people you mentioned how some people kind of have some concerns that, are we heading into junk wax era 2.0? Right. Is a market going to crash like the 90s? And it's certainly different now, because the people that are in it are not when we were those kids. We're all grown up and we have the disposable income. I think it's a different place. But for me, Ken is bang on. If Fanatics, Panini, the people in charge of supply and demand for wax screw this up in the next 3 to 5 years, for me, this is just my opinion, but my prediction is that I feel like that would not hurt the sports card market as a whole. It would just hurt ultra modern cards and how we view ultra modern cards, which has somewhat been happening already, right? So I think ultra modern or the super ultra modern could be affected based on whatever path they want to trek in the next little while. But Ken is right in that the older stuff that is fully entrenched in terms of pop counts and rarity and all that stuff, I think that is going to continue its course, right? And the demand and the people that are into sports cards, if you're not going to in the future maybe invest or play around with ultra modern and you're like, you know what, I'm done with that because this is junk wax 2.0, we're all going to start shifting our eyes towards vintage and something else. And you're going to see, you might see something special in the pricing in the not so distant future, right? So I'm 100% in agreement with what Ken said.
Yeah, not much further to add except to listen to our episode maybe 2 or 3 episodes ago where we did touch upon the vintage card market. And I believe we agreed that, yeah, some of these vintage cards are just historical art in our opinion. And the value is going to hold over the long term. All right, seems like we're all in it for the long haul, and we generally see this so-called market correction as a good thing for the hobby in the medium to long term. So yeah, we're still all in it together, boys. All right.
Absolutely.
But as of now, we're still seeing a downward trend in many card prices. So I want to see if you guys are surprised. This is my segue to the next segment. I want to see if you guys are surprised at where current prices are of 3 cards in our next segment that we're calling Over Under. All right, so in this segment, I'll tell you the card and throw out a price. And you tell me if you think the last sold price is over or under that number. Okay? And we've done this before. So, all right, card number 1 is the Patrick Mahomes Optic Holo PSA 10 rookie card.
Oh, boy.
The one that you and I, John,
yep.
we want. The number is 1900.
What?
Wow.
Over
No, it's
or
not.
under 1900?
No, it's not. It's not under that, is it?
You tell me.
18. No,
No.
I say over. It's still over.
Over for Hyung.
Yeah.
If it's under, I'm searching it tonight. I'm going to say over because that's crazy.
All right. Last sold 1850.
No.
Wow.
What?
That's crazy.
It's time to buy, boys.
Optic Holo? Dude, that was the price of Optic base.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and holos are
Holy jeez.
were like so expensive back in the day.
Remember, where like 3,000 was a good price back in the day.
Man.
Holy cow. Wow.
You know what? I still think it could go down even
it
maybe
could,
a little bit
man.
more.
You know what? Optic is known for that, you know? Even though we all love Optic, we know the history of Optic and how volatile it can be, you know?
So it's a trap?
It doesn't get it doesn't get love like Prism, you know? We all know that, right?
Yeah.
So
Right. No, but
True,
I'd
true.
assume the Prism Silver is probably down pretty badly too then, if the Optic Holo is at 1850.
I think it'll be down, yeah, for sure, in the same kind of trajectory, but I don't think it's going to be as cheap. It'll be probably like double the price.
Right.
Minimum double the price, I think.
Ooh. I like that one. Okay. Keep going.
Okay, we'll go to the next one. Well, let me quickly check actually Prism Silver PSA 10. Last sold was 3,800.
Yeah, so double.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Wasn't that like a $10,000 card?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Holy
The highest it sold for was almost 15,000.
15,000.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Anyway.
Okay.
All right, card number 2, Kevin Durant Topps Chrome Base rookie card PSA
boy.
10,
Oh boy.
1,500.
Was this
I'm
the
gonna
card where I said it was a buy at 5,000? Remember the 5,000 segment?
Oh, was that the base,
Refractor.
not the refractor?
Refractor,
I think it was the base. This was a
No,
while ago.
It must be, yeah, because the refractor would have been double that.
Right.
At least,
I think
right?
the base was. I think I was saying something like it was at 4,000 or something. And I'll save you guys money. It's a buy. Oh my goodness! Wait. So what's the over under? Say it again.
1,500 is the over under.
I'm going to say under.
Okay.
There's cheaper price, or it's going to go under, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Durant has taken a beating. I'll say under too.
All right, you're both right. 1,380 last sold.
Jeez.
Wow.
I got the PSA 9. I bought the PSA 9 for 2,000.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah. I sold it for 700, and now Now it's at 385. So
Yeah, buy high, sell low.
that's a strategy, right?
That's a strategy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. At this point, I'm looking at refractors. You might as well, right?
Yeah.
The top score refractor.
Yeah, PSA 9
Okay.
refractor.
Or or actually there's a BGS 95 True Gem that I was looking to snag if the price is right, and I think the auction's ending in half an hour, and it's already at 3,500, I think. So
Oh, snap.
Okay.
You should just average down. Just start loading up on PSA 9 Topps Chromes. Get that $2,000
Get that
price
cost
down.
basis down, man.
DCA all the way to 0. Okay. All right, last card. Fernando Tatis, his 2016, I believe, is his Bowman Chrome rookie card autograph. BGS 95, 10 auto, 1,600.
That's 26. 2016.
The one where he's just standing.
The White Sox
Yep.
jerseys.
Yep.
So 2016 Bowman Chrome.
Yep.
His base, sorry, you said 9.5?
Yes, Gem Mint, BGS Gem Mint.
1,600. 1,600. I could. Oh man, that's really cheap.
I remember at the show 2 shows ago, Hyung, when you bought that, and it was like
BGS.
it was a BGS 9, and it was
9,
like 1,900 Canadian, which is about 1,600 US.
Yeah.
That was like a steal at the time, and now
That was a steal. Yeah.
and now the 9.5 is 1,600. That's crazy.
The last card show that we went to, actually, which wasn't that long ago, I saw this very card for 4,000 Canadian. So
Wow.
So this has to be a min gem.
yeah, let's say it is
I'm gonna say under.
under 1,600. Okay.
Yeah. If it's a min gem, I don't think true gems and true gem pluses will go down that low, but
Right.
John.
I could
Man,
see min
that's
gems going.
low though.
That's PSA 9.
I'm gonna go under 2. I'm gonna go under 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last sold 1,775. So over.
1775. Okay.
Yeah. But I can see it go down to 1,600.
I think so. Well, Tatis is swinging now.
He's swinging.
He's
That's-
taking
yeah, that's good
he's
news for
taking
sure.
live at bats, so
Yeah, maybe
hopefully
2-3
it
weeks.
gives a little bump in his card market. Give us some life.
I know. Right?
Yeah. So all these 3 cards I listed, like, I'm just tempted to snag a couple of these right now.
Damn.
They're at the price point where
The Mahomes, man. Ooh,
I know.
might have to switch gears.
all right. Maybe revisit this segment too, as as long as we're in this bear market, we might as well monitor some of these prices.
Yeah, good call.
and it'll be good for our listeners as well. All right, let's end off the show with our weekly segment we call Pick One. And if you're a first-time listener, this is where each of us choose 2 cards or 2 sets, and then we debate which one we would rather invest in or which one we agree is the more true statement. Okay, so Hyung, do you want to start things off?
Sure thing. Since we were talking about the iconic 52 Topps Mickey Mantle, I'll lead that off with the 52 Mickey Mantle, the Topps Mickey Mantle SGC 95. So we think it's going to be a $10 million card versus a 1951 Bowman Mickey Mantle PSA 10. So this is a pop 1. So this actually was purchased for $600,000 back in 2008. This card, the 1951 Bowman Mickey Mantle PSA 10. So there's only one PSA 10.
Wow.
Would you rather have that or the iconic 52 Topps Mickey Mantle that was just listed at Heritage, the SGC 95?
Johnny, go.
Wow, I didn't know 51 Bowman was a pop 1.
That was his first. The PSA 10's a pop 1.
Damn.
I think there's 1,800 graded, I want to say.
Right. Okay, so if I was in a position, if I'm either mega rich or somebody nice enough.
Yeah, we're obviously rich enough to just drop 8 figures on.
Yeah, exactly. Or somebody rich enough, mega rich, wanted to gift me one of these cards. Purely because either way, I think whoever is purchasing this, obviously there's an investment portion to it because that's what gives you the confidence to lay down that kind of money. But you're also probably a hardcore sports card art whatever collector, and this is why you want this card so badly. So in that case, if you're in it to chase the all-time grail PC, you gotta go with the 52 Mantle in the 9.5, which looks absolutely beautiful. If somebody gifted me one for free and I could pick one of the two, it's 52 Mantle for me. Just knowing that I have one of the cleanest copies of the arguably top 3 iconic sports cards of all time. It's like 52 Mantle, Jordan Fleer, and probably Ken Griffey are like probably the 3 most iconic. Like how could you not want that card? I could understand, I think from an investment standpoint, the 51 Bowman Pop 1 is very attractive. You don't know what that price could command. Right. I could see the other side of that, but I'm just purely, this is whoever's purchasing these cards probably going like monster grail hunting. It's got to be 52 Mantle.
Yeah. Yeah, you kind of mentioned it already, John, but like, man, it's tempting to pick the 52 Bowman, saying 51? Like, 51 Bowman.
Right, the Pop 1.
Saying that I have the only PSA 10 card, and you probably won't get a second PSA 10 in a while, if ever. Right. But yeah, I'm with you. At the same time, it's so iconic. The 52 Tops is so iconic that even if it's not a PSA 10, but like SGC 9.5 is just as good, and you definitely not be unhappy about having a SGC 9.5. Yeah, I think for me, I'm still sticking with the 52 Tops.
Nice. Right. I still don't know what I'm gonna pick, to be honest, because I agree with you guys that 52 Tops is like so iconic, and I think I did one before where it was the same value. If you had like 20,000, would you have a higher graded like a Bowman or a lower graded Tops? Right, and I think you guys both said the 52 tops, obviously, right? So, man, yeah, I'm gonna agree with you because I think that's a PSA 10, to be honest. But obviously, I don't think we'll ever know that. There's only 3 in existence. None with new labels, I believe. So the card is too iconic, and I think the horizontal card kind of gets me on the 51 Bowman. If it was a vertical card, I think that's why the 52 Tops also is that much better, just because it's such an iconic image in our society. If people seen that image and they didn't know anything to do with sports cards, they'll know that that's still an iconic image. Even that set, that 52 Tops, is probably one of the most iconic sets ever in all of sports cards, right? So true. I'm going to agree with you guys. Even though it's a Pop 1, normally I would have kept the Pop 1. And you're right, John, that card could go for whatever you want it to go for, right? It could go for more than potentially, the Mantles. You never know. Or the 52 Tops, right? So, yeah. But yeah, right now, as it stands, I'd rather have the 52 Tops as well.
If the SGC Mantle was in an old label and it did get sent in for reholdering, can you imagine whoever was handling that thing?
Oh man!
Sign that guy up to be the next like head surgeon at whatever hospital, because he's probably got like
it's probably some kid.
Yeah, just like the softest hands possible.
Yeah, that's I don't even want to think about the potential damage.
My palms are sweaty just thinking about
it. All right, John.
All right, your turn. Okay. So in honor of a friend of the show, Refractor Jones, we're going to go better investment going forward, assuming we're going to get out of this bear market. 90s refractors versus 90s inserts. Grade doesn't matter. We're just talking strictly 90s refractors, 90s inserts.
Any sport?
Any sport?
Any sport, but I mean, for me, basketball is probably the most iconic right, in terms of the 90s inserts. So,
I mean, I'll throw it out. I think I would stick with refractors. I think long term, there's so much desire and demand in 90s refractors specifically, right? The refractors hit different. even in 2000s, early 2000s, late 90s, early 90s, like that's the time when, that's all you're chasing. There's no other parallel. Well, that's why inserts were so popular too, I think, because inserts were the chase as well, right? So I'm going with the refractors though, because I like OG, I like classic stuff. I don't like dabbling into inserts. You know me. I'm very, very OG. So
yeah, I think there's a biased opinion, but like, it doesn't help that insert cards in the modern and ultra modern era are just like ugly, or like, it's just there's too many of them. So maybe that's just how I feel about inserts these days. But even back then in the 90s, like the design is kind of, it's, I don't know, also ugly. Like some things haven't changed in the hobby with the inserts. Like, of course, there's a few inserts that are, above and beyond. But for the most part, it's just...
You're hurting a lot of feelings, man. People who own these 90s inserts.
Sorry, I got to speak truth. So, so yeah, I'm with Hyung on this one too. Like, I like the general cleaner look of refractors, and even like looking at Topps Chrome refractors, I love those. Like, it's just the extra shine that it has over the base. Some of these iconic base cards. Yeah, I'm chasing those as we speak. So, refractors for me.
Right. Clarky, I'm going to disagree with you in terms of the inserts. I think they look great, Even to be honest, to be honest, even when I rip like Topps Chrome, like completely unbiased point of view, when I'm opening a fresh Topps Chrome and I see these inserts for the first time, I really like them actually. But it's just when you find out that they're not rare at all, then you're like, it's trash. And your mind just your mind just changed. I don't necessarily I think I agree with you. I think you mentioned it once. You didn't like the Bowman inserts. I kind of agree with you there. Some of the Bowman, like the prospect inserts, they kind of look gaudy and not so well thought out. But Topps Chrome, 90s inserts, for the most part, I think most of these companies are doing a really good job. It just, when people find out they're not rare, it's not case hit or anything special, then it just kind of goes by the wayside. But anyways, back to the point.
I just learned that John doesn't appreciate good art if you think those inserts are nice.
No, I love those inserts. But you know what? Okay. I'm going to agree with you guys. We've made this point about refractors a while ago. And I've been looking at, because I love Kobe's, I love the 96 Kobe's and trying to collect rookie cards. So that always keeps my eye on 90s refractors by default. I'm always kind of keeping an eye out to see how much Kobe refractor is, like the Topps Finest refractor. I'd love to own one day. And seemingly over the last little while, it's not necessarily getting cheaper. I mean, obviously it's gotten cheaper from the big surge, but it looks like really refractors, especially sort of the quote vintage refractors from the 90s, is starting to gain some steam. And I think when we just talked about last week, like gold refractors, starting to really hit and starting to become insanely collectible. I think there's going to be a lot of spillover to those OG refractors. And even though they're not numbered, they're all very low population. So I think 90s inserts, I feel, had its moment and had the shine and it had the spotlight. I don't think 90s refractors had it. So I could certainly see better investment going forward. I could see 90s refractors maybe doing a bit better than inserts over the next little while.
Good one. I like that. All right, we'll end off with my pick one choices. Okay, on one side is Aaron Judge, his Bowman Chrome base rookie auto, BGS 9510 Gem Mint. I think last sold for about $1,200. And on the other side, Paul Goldschmidt, his Bowman Chrome rookie auto. Sorry, I can't remember the years. I can find that out in a bit. But BGS 95, same grade, 10 auto, last sold for about $300. So what I'm really asking you is that, what do you think can give you the best ROI? I guess that's what I'm kind of asking. And these guys are both, at this current moment, leading as favorites to win their respective MVPs. Their respective league MVP honors. And that could change with AL because Shohei's right there too. But yeah, let's just say Aaron Judge and Paul Goldschmidt, 1,200 versus 300.
Man. 300 is so cheap. I mean, you can't look away
Judge
from that.
Sorry, what's Judge on pace for home run wise?
He's
62.
He's gonna break Maris's New York record.
All right.
Like that's what this year is his year, man. He has 37 bombs.
Yeah.
You know, New York Yankee legend, but we don't know if he's gonna be there. He's 30 years old. Goldie's 34. I think when Aaron Judge is 34, he's gonna do more. He's gonna accomplish more than Goldie, I think, has in terms of kind of like home runs, kind of WAR, and his trajectory of kind of fame, I guess, because of the New York Yankees status. So that's the only thing is I want to say Goldie just based off the price. It's like $300, man. Like you're talking 4x already, cheaper, right? I like Aaron Judge in terms of the investment, in terms of the player, because I think he's just going to get a lot more love than Goldie. But I think at $300, you can't go wrong. It's like you're going to 4x before you even break even with Aaron Judge. So I'm gonna say Goldie at 300.
Okay.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm not necessarily like a huge, neither Judge or Goldie would be in my PC. So I would speak on this from an investment angle. I have never been on the show, never been on the Judge train like you have, Clark. But in this case, I think I'm going to pick Judge. He is 4 times the price. I feel, I have previously invested in somebody like Goldschmidt, which was Arenado.
Right.
And, solid investment. I could see it going up, but I just feel it's going to take a lot for a $300 price to go to maybe 600 or 700. Because 300, to be honest, it might already have MVP baked into it, right? So this could maybe be the peak of that card. So I could see it being a bit tougher. Now, if you're a Goldie fan and you want to hold it long term, no issues with that. But if just strictly from somebody like me who's not a big fan of either, if I was just looking to make some money here, Judge is more expensive, but I think he has the opportunity to do something pretty special that's going to catch the attention of the entire baseball world and hype and all of that stuff. If he goes 62 and breaks Maris, and then the following year goes 62 again, or goes 63 or 65 or something insane, goes back to back like that, I could see people, maybe in myself, really jumping on the Judge train, right? Because I think what really held Judge back was kind of what I sort of saw in like Cody Bellinger, where you have this monster MVP season, everybody believes in you, and you kind of have a crappy season and you kind of fall off. And then you have an amazing season and you're like, oh, you see, there he is. And you have a crappy season. And as some people like myself start thinking, I don't know, does he have that consistency in him? But if he shows it, which he has been, and he stays this monster that he's been, I could see his card doubling, tripling, way, more likely than the Goldie card. So I think that's why, for that reason, I picked the Judge.
Yeah. So I'm going to break the tie. I'm going to go with Judge, not because I have a refractor Bowman Chrome rookie auto in my collection, but and I'm not pumping my card, but I agree with John. I think it's more likely that Judge will accomplish something that will just boost his value, and I like him as a better investment piece. Whereas, I think we talked about it in one episode before, somewhat recently, that Goldschmidt's one of those guys, he doesn't get the hobby love for whatever reason, and, can he go from 300 to 600? Man, I don't know. Even if he wins NL MVP, even if he's hands down NL MVP, I think, maybe it's a possibility, but, can I see Judge go from 1,200 to 2,000 if he hits the 62 home run mark? Yeah, absolutely. I think, everyone wants to see guys that hit homers, Goldie's hitting homers too, but Judge is doing it in New York City, right? And I love that he plays in a big market like New York. So Yeah. You know what? I have heard rumors of Judge Soto trade. If that's the case, okay, I changed my mind. Goldschmidt. No, I'm just kidding. If he goes to Washington.
Wait. There's actually pretty substantiated rumors about Judge.
No.
Oh, just
no.
rumor.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, whoa, that's pretty crazy.
Any news about Soto now is just baseless rumors right now, right?
Yeah.
So, he might come to the Jays. I heard that too. So,
Padres, man. Padres need another stick.
Can you imagine Tatis and Soto?
Tatis, Soto, Machado.
To be honest,
wow.
The Padres seemed. I remember seeing some trade scenarios, and the Padres seem the most likely. They have the right pieces, and they have the greatest need for Soto. So it kind of makes sense on both sides.
That'd be a dangerous team.
I know.
That would.
All right, another fun episode, guys. We'll end it here. Thanks again to all our listeners and subscribers. We really appreciate you giving us 5 stars if you enjoyed the program. And we'll see you again next week for a brand new episode. See you then. Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to Cards to the Moon. We'd really appreciate you subscribing to our podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can also connect with each of us on Instagram at 5cardguys, or you can follow Hyung at Integrity Sports Cards, or John at TradeU at Recess. You can also check us out at 5cardguys.com. Thanks again, and hope to connect soon.